On November 3rd, Carl Stecker, CRS's Haiti Program Quality Support from Haiti's Quality Support Unit, along with Dennis Warner and Christopher Saramet, CRS's engineering technical advisors, met with Jordan O'Brien to review the project. And then they met again with Jordan Ermilio's class to review and offer feedback on the students' work thus far. Jordan then enlisted the assistance of Professor Seth Whidden, the Director of French Studies and Francophone Program, to translate materials for the workshop. And Seth Whidden, with the support of his chair, Mercedes Julia, offered and developed a French service learning internship course that was offered in spring 2012 for this purpose. Now, while Emilio was the only member of the engineering staff who was free to give the workshop in Haiti, Professors O'Brien, Falcone, and Dean Jones contributed to the effort by video recording modules that would be integrated into the workshop. And Dan Payne, a Villanova alum and engineering consultant specializing in disasters, volunteered to join Emilio and Whidden. Professor Whidden and two graduating seniors, is that right, Seth? Was it two? Yeah. Two graduating seniors in Whidden's class generously volunteered to serve as on-site translators and facilitators for the Haiti workshop. So let me introduce our two presenters. Jordan Ermilio is the first director of the Engineering Service Program at Villanova University. He's no stranger to the halls of the college, having worked with students for more than a decade and earning both his bachelor's degree in mechanical engineering and his master's in water resource engineering from Villanova. He's traveled the world organizing and participating in international development projects that design and build water systems and environmental health programs for rural communities in developing countries. Annual immersion trips he coordinates allow students the opportunity to participate in ventures that assess, design, and implement water supply, renewable energy, and environmental health projects in Nicaragua and Honduras. His professional experience includes environmental resource, water resource engineering, the United States Peace Corps, Klangan Ugo, the Philippines, engaging in rural water and electrification projects, and water resource engineer and technical field advisor for Oxfam International. East Timor, engaging in water and sanitation construction projects. He holds a postgraduate diploma in technology for developing countries from Loughborough University Water Engineering and Development Center in England. Seth Whidden is Associate Professor of French and coordinator of the French and Francophone Studies program at Villanova. His teaching approach includes how classroom expands horizons. When teaching upper-level courses, these are cross-listed with honors, gender and women's studies, Africana studies programs, gathering students of diverse interests together, embracing their differences, and in fact yielding interviews between students and writers and musicians and music professionals. In spring 2012, he directed the CRS project I just described. His research focuses primarily on 19th century French literature, and he participates as co-editor-in-chief of Parade Parade Sauvage, Revue des Fous. Go ahead. I did take a language exam in French. Revue Quotidienne, is that right? Okay, thank you. And Revue Berlin, the scholarly journals devoted to poetry of Arthur Rimbaud and Paul Verlaine. Is that right? Verlaine, respectively. He is also associate editor of 19th Century French Studies, one of the leading journals of the French studies published in North America. He holds a PhD from Brown University. So it is an honor and a pleasure to introduce Jordan and Seth to you and to provide this opportunity to share their learning and their best practices.
Why don't you start? Jump back and forth? Is that okay?
Yeah, why don't I
You know, there's a lavalier mic so that he could actually sit.
Oh, thank you. No, that's okay. Thank you very much. Don't worry.
So I'm just going to pass around two booklets, one in French that Seth had worked on, and the one that we actually, the one in English too. If you want to quick take a look at the module that we developed for this particular program. I'd also like to take the opportunity to recap a couple things. Frank Galgano, who's not here at the moment, but he did use engineering and bulldozer in the same sentence. just to touch base on that. Tom Price, thank you for your, is he still here? Okay. Well, as the director of the engineering service program, I'm going to solicit you to get a minute of media time, if we could. I don't even need a minute of extra. I don't even need an extra minute. I just need one. But unfortunately, 13%, Jim O'Brien's going to point this out to me very quickly, 13% of nothing is still nothing. So we're basically operating on quite a shoestring, and so that's my comic relief for the lunch audience here. Seth, anything here?
No, nothing
Okay.
to top that. Go ahead.
Okay. Just give me a second, and I'm going to pull up. I'm on a split screen, so should be okay. What do we get right here? Okay. I'm actually anticipating something here that Sue Toten will likely want to address as sort of a add-on to this particular discussion. And that is, of course, what is the role of academia in disaster relief, and what is the role of academia in international development? So I'm going to pose that question to everyone, and then as we go through this, I'm obviously going to present some of my thoughts on that particular topic towards the end of the discussion. So to begin with, we're going to talk about how this project was identified, the student participation in multiple classes during the implementation of this particular initiative, the challenges that we faced, and what we've sort of developed as some next steps. Okay, so essentially this particular project was identified, and the scope of which is essentially to demonstrate the feasibility of Villanova University and our capacity as an institution to implement training and development programs to support CRS's field operations. Quite simply, that was our initial scope. In fact, the long-term scope, which was going through a number of different iterations, was to basically establish a certificate program of some kind. This was the initial proposal, and that would have looked like a series of modules of some kind over a number of years, equivalent to something along the lines of an undergraduate certificate. Somewhat of like a concentrated type of course in water, sanitation, health, engineering, and so on. And then in order to basically demonstrate our capacity, we decided to go for a little bit of a low-hanging fruit with respect to all of this work and just demonstrate our capacity as an institution. So really that was sort of the framework of what and how we got involved with this. And the time frame here, what we're looking at was in the fall of 2010. Essentially it was what was equivalent to a courting process with the water seminar, the International Water and Sustainability Seminar. Water and Conflict was the name of it. We were introduced to some of CRS's technical personnel, Dennis Warner and Chris Saramet, the two individuals at CRS Baltimore headquarters, who basically introduced us to this particular project in Haiti. In the spring of 2011, Jim O'Brien, Kim Conley, and myself traveled to Haiti with Dennis Warner and Chris Saramet to basically do some preliminary assessments, right? Talk to local staff people in Haiti, their field engineers working with Haiti, their health practitioners and their technicians about some of the issues that they're dealing with to identify opportunities for Villanova to provide services to support their efforts. So it's a little bit of a unique challenge when it comes to that type of assessment because as academics we like to talk a lot, but this particular part of the project really entailed more listening. Right? Basically just working with CRS staff, shadowing them for a few days in their operations and what they're dealing with on a day-to-day basis in the camps and so on, and listening to their needs and having some facilitated conversations, meetings, and so on to say, well, how can we participate? How can we help? We identified a number of project areas, of which one of them was what they identified as professional development type of opportunities for their own career paths. So then in the fall of 2011, I was teaching a course called Humanistic Context. It's a service learning course, and the notion here was that we needed to create some urgency with respect to this particular program, so we introduced this as a mini project in this class, again under the advisement of Jim O'Brien, who said to me in the hallways one day that we should just make that the class, make that part of the class, put it in there, put it in the curriculum, and get students working on it right away. Otherwise, it might slip through the cracks, right? So this was how we really implemented this in an academic setting. Then, of course, in the spring of 2012, I guess we might have met in the fall. We were sort of vetting Mercedes Julie a little bit with respect to her interest in doing some translations for this particular module. So Seth Whidden and his team, and ultimately infinitely grateful to them and all the work that they did to help translate these materials and put them into the form that you see now. So then, of course, in the summer, we actually traveled to Haiti, did this workshop. It was about a one-week workshop, 3 days of intense classroom type of lectures and breakout sessions and discussions all around water, sanitation, environmental health issues, and also a day of field work. So we were shadowing them for another day. And now, of course, it's the fall of 2012, and we're really looking at an evaluation step. So as I mentioned, student participation in this was via two courses. One is the EGR 2001 course. It's an engineering service learning course called Humanistic Context. And the other is the independent study service learning internship with the French program, both of which were absolutely essential to moving these projects forward a little bit, this particular initiative. I like to use this notion that credit is currency. Right, so I'm an enormous advocate for volunteerism. Volunteerism certainly plays a role in a lot of the efforts and things that we do on a day-to-day basis, particular with a lot of these international service-related projects. However, in this particular instance, we couldn't rely on that type of goodwill to really deliver something that was what we wanted to have as the highest quality, the highest standard type of workshop training. So the notion that credit is currency is a key thing, I think, with respect to academia. So introducing these type of initiatives in a classroom is, in my opinion, one of the best, most effective ways of working on projects of this nature. Again, this is this notion that there are really important things that need to be done, and perhaps this is just me coming to the point where I'm almost 40 in my life, realizing that those important things that need to be done don't get done unless there's urgency associated with them. So our approach here, and this was my rationale for bringing this into the classroom, was to essentially create that urgency, because on Friday afternoon at 3:30, if there isn't a group of students knocking on my door asking me about the WASH seminar and what their next steps are going to be, then likely my attention is going to be elsewhere, right? So having that urgency, having those students knock on your door and working with them one-on-one to create some momentum behind this initiative was very important. And again, the other two pieces here that with respect to the rationale is to essentially engage students with some challenging project-related experience, and to require them to think a little more holistically about their engineering education and holistically about how engineers and how development work impacts communities outside of our own. Now, there was a little bit of a post-course evaluation that we implemented here in my particular class, and the purpose of this was really to ask a question, does this class fill a void with respect to engineering education in general? So the first few questions here on the left are essentially the same question asked twice in two different ways. So you'll see question number 2 is, did this course provide a sense of the role that engineers have on society? And does this, the next second one down from that is, does this course provide a role that the impact that engineering has on society? It's essentially the same question asked twice, and you can see that the results were, out of a 1 to 5 scale, very similar. And the third question down and two from that is the same question twice, but that's with respect to the general engineering curriculum, whether or not the general engineering curriculum actually provides that notion and the role of engineering in society and the impact and so on. So how I would personally evaluate this would be somewhere along the lines of anything that's in the order of 4 and above is a yes, right? In other words, we were effective in meeting that particular course objective. Anything that would be less than 4, 3.5 to 4 type of range would be something that, well, maybe yes, maybe no, should be reconsidered, could we re-strategize? Anything less than 3.5, and in my opinion, this is just an opinion, would be something that, well, you might want to reconsider, or that we're not really that effective in delivering that type of objective. Yes?
Jordan, did you have sort of equal representation from the departments, or was it, one department?
Sure. So actually this is kind of interesting because this particular course is one of the only general engineering courses that has the opportunity for chemical, electrical, civil, and mechanical to collaborate together. I mean, there are a few others too, but this was really one of the ones that's directly in the classroom type of thing. So in this particular class was about 30 engineering students, the majority of which were mechanical and civil. Chemical was the second, and electrical was the third, or the last really in terms of number of students in that particular class. Now, obviously, as a liberal arts university, ethics in the classroom is an important piece of what we do. So this was a question as to, did this course provide a significant appreciation for ethical considerations in engineering, and does the general curriculum provide that? And you can see the results from that. And then, of course, the last thing that I really wanted to gauge was students' interest in engineering service-oriented projects before and after this class. So one, did this class and this project, this in-class project, actually reinforce some of the conceptual understanding? Two, what was your interest in engineering service-oriented projects before this class, and what is your interest afterwards?
Jordan, can you give us some idea of what some of those numbers are? I can't see a thing.
Oh, really? I'm sorry.
My glasses make it worse.
Okay.
Thanks.
Yep.
Okay, sort of same age.
Okay, my fault. I'm sorry. So what you're looking at here is the course provided the sense that the role engineers have is a 4.6 on an average for the entire group. So really just looking at the total here. So that was a 4.6 compared to a 3 with respect to the general engineering curriculum. So there's good news and bad news there, right? The good news is students that took this course had a better sense, right? The bad news is the students that didn't take this course perhaps didn't. And then the course provided a significant insight into the impact that engineering has on society. It was a 4.65 compared to a 3 again. Ethical considerations in engineering. Actually, it was an overwhelming yes, because that's a 4.78 is what you're looking at there. And again, it was about 30 students in the class. And the general engineering curriculum provides a significant appreciation for ethical considerations in engineering, and that was a 3. So that's sort of like an A plus compared to like a C, right? And then I think that the big one here that's really interesting is that students who took this class and participated in this project evaluated that at a 3.9 in terms of their interest in continuing working in an engineering service-related capacity, compared to their assessment of their interest before that, which was 1.57, right? So 1.6. Okay, so moving on to challenges and with respect to working in this particular project. Obviously, all of us have this issue. Some of these issues are not unique to the classroom or they're unique to these type of projects, but managing expectations was an enormous challenge. Now, if you're looking at this from a broad perspective, you have in-country partners, you have headquarter offices, you have partnership committees, you have the students themselves, you have the ultimate beneficiaries that CRS Haiti staff are actually serving. You have the students, other faculty, resources, and so on. So making sure that all of those pieces are in place and essentially understand the different roles that the other individuals are playing is an important first step, right? So that's what I would sum up as managing expectations. Establishing some conceptual understanding of the students with respect to international development. In other words, developing this particular coursework, this module that you see going around, it definitely didn't look like that after the first, second, third iteration, right? The point being is that students are still learning. Some of them were sophomores, juniors, some of them were seniors, and their conceptual understanding of what the target looks like is significantly different than someone with respect to the CRS field office in Haiti, right? Someone in the CRS field office in Haiti says, this is what we need, and the students might not link up with that directly. So, and it's primarily because they don't have a conceptual understanding of boots on the ground, day-to-day operations of an NGO, in particular in Haiti, in a what I would call a post-emergency transitional period. So communicating with in-country partners and staff, whereas that wasn't an enormous challenge, that's the third one down there, it was certainly a challenge, particularly with French and English translations and so on. But we found that most of the communication was in English. So a lot of the leadership team in the CRS office was fluent in French and English, so that was good news for us. Providing ongoing technical assistance to in-country staff. This, in my opinion, is an ongoing challenge, primarily because it kind of goes back to that expectation. I think that there was an implied expectation, being that we were in front of this group as a team of experts on water development issues, and the audience, the participants in that particular training, had an expectation, in my opinion, that there would be some more ongoing, continuous support for technical issues, right? So that's something that I'm highlighting here, because I think it's something that still needs to be on the table and discussed. And logistical liability issues, not only with the CRS headquarter office, but also with Villanova office, risk and management and so on. Students' participation in this type of project, obviously that was a challenge. And I'm sorry, Barbara, but you're going to have a hard time reading this as well.
Want to trade seats?
But this is basically the subject, the list of subject areas that we addressed during this seminar: environmental health, environmental sanitation, solid waste management, water resources, water supply and demand, water quality, water treatment technology, and water system design. So this is the nuts and bolts of the 3-day training seminar that we implemented. And in here is the report of the participants' evaluation with respect to how effective they thought those subjects were. The next set of areas of interest were, because what we ended up doing was we ended up using multiple techniques with respect to this particular seminar to try to gauge which ones are more effective, less effective, and so on. So the traditional in-class presentation lecture format, students sit, faculty person presents, slideshow format, that was the first, right? So that particular session, the reports back from that were that 4.4 out of 5, right? So that's what I would say was an effective mode of training. Discussions and activities. These were basically, you have 3 days of workshop. Nobody can sit there for 3 days and just listen to one person speak. So in my opinion, this was one of the best approaches, because it really engages people and gives us an opportunity to learn from the CRS engineers and so on, because we would have discussion topics and activities for them to break out, much like a seminar or some type of conference where we have breakout sessions in smaller groups and work on particular challenges. And so that gave us a return back with a 4.2. Case studies, these were take-home assignments where every evening the group had a little mini case study to read. and they would report back on that the following day. That was a 4.3 out of 5. And the video presentations, these were pre-recorded video presentations with faculty in engineering who recorded about 1 hour lecture on a particular subject area. And that came back at a 3.5. And it's hard to say, honestly, with respect to the video presentations, whether or not the reason why this was a little bit of a lower score could have been either the audience's ability to connect with the presenter, because it was a pre-recorded video, or if it was technical challenges, right? Because there were a few of those during the implementation of the video presentations. In other words, the stream wasn't as clean. The wireless internet that we had available wasn't as broad as it would have needed to be to have a more seamless presentation. Okay, so next steps. This is a list of things that we basically put together post workshop to identify what are some things that we need to do and start thinking about now in terms of the 2 to 5 year type of plan. And what we were looking at here is, first and foremost, Villanova and CRS should put together and develop some joint proposals around capacity building initiatives, right? Really, in my opinion, this is one of the easiest things that we can do in academia with respect to the CRS partnership is to develop training modules to support their local initiatives, their local staff. Now, it's a little bit easy for us to say, because we're sitting in academia, we have access to information, we have access to seminars and other lecture materials quite easily. But having sat on the other end of this equation here, and having been in the field on the ground in a number of different countries, I sort of had this gut feeling, right, that the local staff don't always feel as supported as some of the, what you would call the international expat staff. Because the opportunities for those international expat staff is to take graduate courses, to advance themselves through the CRS system or whatever the NGO might be. However, talking the talk and walking the walk with respect to the local staff is not always as obvious. So this is where our conversations with the local staff in Haiti really geared around, let's build some capacity building and training programs to support them in their professional development objectives. So Villanova and CRS should coordinate to ensure that training of local staff is included in CRS's programming. This is something that obviously if you have funding to do something, but it's not built into the day-to-day operations and the annual programming of different field offices, well, you might not actually hit the target. So that's a key piece to the next steps. Identify other training needs within the CRS Haiti program. I think that's probably the low-hanging fruit on this list here. Something that we could very easily do is to deploy another group to do some other trainings, whether it's more on engineering or more on health, because we just touched on some of those topics, or even things on business management, other skills and things that we could bring to their resources, to their staff. I think that's an easy no-brainer. The fourth one down here is to create a Center for International Development and Sustainability. This is a topic that didn't only come up within Villanova's community here with the discussions that we have with various faculty and staff involved with the international efforts, but it also came up with the CRS headquarter group, Dennis and Chris Saramet, who saw a need to have some form of incubation and some form of a center to house a lot of these initiatives. Identify research opportunities to investigate sustainability issues of post-emergency and transitional development projects. That was on the list from the original May 2010 trip. They were interested in two things particularly. One was the capacity building, and the other was research opportunities, right? So how do we know what we're doing is the right thing, and from the 5-year perspective, the big picture type of stuff. And the last is to identify multidisciplinary projects to engage undergraduate students in development challenges. Again, having this in the classroom is an important piece. Okay, so to answer the question that I posed to the room at the very beginning, the role of academia in international development. Honestly, in my opinion, there's three roles here, and the international development and the emergency relief efforts should probably be distinguished separately, right? Definitely different approaches that could be taken. The two that I'm presenting here are really this capacity building and training, not only of our students at Villanova to be the next leaders in this type of global setting, but also training programs to support CRS's partners, CRS's partner organizations, right? So this is not the CRS headquartered in Haiti with CRS staff, but this would be CRS's partner NGO, the local NGO, all right? So having some training to support CRS's beneficiaries, right? And professional development programs for CRS local and international staff. Research and sustainability issues that I think we could very easily get involved with would be strategic planning, whether it's a group of business analytics or engineers. Clearly, CRS, particularly in emergency settings, doesn't often have the convenience of looking at the 30,000-foot view of the situation. So, to some extent, having some strategic planning and research efforts and earmarking particular individuals to look at those type of issues would be valuable. Also researching sustainable development issues, looking at long-term sustainability things from an environmental, economic, technical point of view, socially, etc. And also special projects, right? So some research initiatives could actually focus on a particular case, scenario, particular special project. The third one that's not mentioned here, I think, is advocacy, obviously. And that's really where I think academia is necessary when it comes to a lot of the emergency relief efforts. You know, just being a voice, being eyes and ears for the underserved and the vulnerable. I think that's an enormous piece of what academia can contribute to these type of initiatives. I'm going to turn it over to Seth because my time might be a little bit up. So I'm going to skip this one particular slide and just take the opportunity to thank a couple of key people here with the CRS partnership, Sue, Arlene, and Barbara Wall. Engineering, obviously, Jim O'Brien, Frank Falcone, who were very much involved with this, Jerry Jones and Dean Gary, who was very supportive. Of course, Mercedes Julia, and Seth Whidden as well. So I'm going to go over to a photo presentation and let Seth talk about his impressions.
It's all great, but let's not be mistaken. This is a huge victory for the humanities. Because as wonderful as everyone's involvement was in this project, as important as everyone's vision was, and as remarkable as everyone's commitment to the overall goals that we had here was, that work does not happen unless we have people who know how to do it in French.
The lavalier mic, I think it got set up on the, no, yeah. Yeah.
So I just wanted to get that out there. I mean, that's where it starts. Jordan came to speak to us in October of 2011 and said, well, we've got all this great knowledge in engineering, we need to get it into French. And that's great, but my colleagues and I aren't bilingual translators. We're not dictionaries. And we don't just translate from one language to another. What we do is we understand language as it exists in a context, which is a slippery thing because contexts change. They're based on history, they're based on people, they're based on religion, they're based on tradition, they're based on a lot of different things. But if any work is going to happen in any foreign country, in any foreign language, that work needs to be situated within its proper context. And so I've only been here 9 years, but when Jordan first approached us, I went back into the catalog as far back as Novices would take me. And in the 40 years that were available, I could not find a course in the French section that listed translating engineering material for presentations. What are we going to do? Fortunately, my colleagues in the Spanish section of my department have a program, a long-standing, very successful program in the CARES project at the law school. And so through lengthy discussions with my very generous department chair, Dr. Mercedes Julia, we were able to find room in the curriculum for in the French side of our department's curriculum that satisfied the general framework of what they're already doing on the Spanish side. It's been so successful with the law school. And so we created a service learning internship that didn't exist. So what does that mean? That means that not only does it exist, this project happen if we have people who understand the language, who understand the context, and who can deliver it in a meaningful manner. But it also means that there's a certain amount of institutional flexibility or willingness to find room to craft some space for this to happen. Because without that course number, which remember we were talking about this, we can't just create a course out of thin air. The registrar won't let us do that. We can't just do it just because that's not always the responsible thing to do. So we really needed to sit down and figure out how to create something that made sense. And we did, in fact, because we already had something that worked so well on the Spanish side that we could kind of imitate a little bit. Another piece that we had to think about was getting to Haiti. We were very, very fortunate to have 11 student participants during the spring semester who were very interested in working on this material. Technology is a wonderful thing. Jordan would put it into Dropbox minutes before class would start, and I'd open up the computer and boom, it was in Dropbox in our classroom, and our students would be working on it. But they were keen on how this material would be presented in Haiti, who would deliver it, who would be allowed to deliver it, under what circumstances. There was at the time, and there currently still is, a travel advisory, State Department travel advisory against travel to Haiti, and so we made it very clear that no enrolled students would travel to Haiti, because that's a university policy, it's consistent with the State Department, and we had to stick with that, and that was fine. What we ended up doing was that we found, fortunately we had some of the people who were interested in participating were on the verge of graduation, and after they received their diplomas from Villanova, they were no longer students. Some of them you see actually. After commencement, they were no longer students at Villanova. They were free to go wherever they wanted in the world, and that included Haiti, where it just so happened that there would be a week-long workshop on water resource management in Port-au-Prince. So that was an administrative, I won't say a hurdle to get over, but at least a consideration that we needed to be mindful of, and that we were able to work with various offices in the university's administration to find a solution that was suitable, that allowed for the work to proceed without compromising the university's interests, nor putting anyone at risk. There's Teresa with the blonde hair. She had just graduated 4 days before that photo was taken. So why did I do this? When Jordan first approached my colleagues and me about this, I thought that this is the kind of thing that we absolutely needed to do. It's important to contribute to the world. It's important also to show people from around the campus that the humanities and what we do in the College of Liberal Arts and Sciences, not just it's important, but that it goes hand in hand with so many other things that are happening on campus. It could have been the same thing if it had been a project of the business school, or the College of Nursing, or the law school, or anywhere else. And this is truly an interdisciplinary project in the best sense of the word. While Jordan was gathering those initial PowerPoint presentations, and before we got our hands on them, my students that spring, I had 9 French and Francophone Studies majors and 2 students from the College of Engineering who had taken coursework in French if they were very functional in French. We sat and we read a full history of Haiti in French. We read 2 novels written by Haitian authors in French. One, they both discuss the earthquake and the immediate impact after the earthquake and what it meant to be there, going through that and moving through that immediately, during, and after. And that was not just because I'm a literature professor and I make my students read literature, although that's not untrue. The reason that came to play when we were down there the week after commencement, and I think we were 1 day into it, and one of the recent alumna turned to me and said, "This is exactly what we saw in that book. Remember that novel when the author was talking about this?" And she's talking about how the hospital was turned into the crumbling hospital was reduced to a monster that scared the little girl. I saw that on the bus ride back to the hotel at the end of the day. I'm seeing exactly what we went through in those pages. And so there's that. And sure, it's neat to see for yourself what you are experiencing as you're reading a novel. That's certainly always enjoyable. But also, during the course of the workshop, we were able to talk about all this great engineering knowledge that we were able to turn into French and share with the engineers from all over Haiti. But there were also times when I stopped, the recent alums stopped, and we said, and in fact, this speaks directly to the deforestation of Haiti and the terrible problems that the country has known because of, and I got into some of the aspects of the history that we had learned by virtue of reading those history books and by reading those novels. And we were able to understand so much of the topography of the country, the history of the country, the culture of the country from the other readings that we had. And so for that, this being able to bring together these otherwise disparate fields of study, enriching the whole process and the results tremendously. It also enables me, as the current coordinator of the French and Francophone Studies program, to think about ways in which our curriculum can be brought to bear on other areas of the university, other fields of study. And I'm not going to say that they're infinite, that'd be just a little bit egotistical on my part, but there are other similar opportunities, I think, where disciplines like ours can be brought to the table with and shared with other disciplines in ways that are really interesting, really able to make an impact on the world, exciting for the students, and really challenging for the professor. I'll say that on a selfish level, I worked a lot last semester in the spring on this. It's one thing to stay out late grading papers for students, because we all do that all the time, but this really made me think about my own discipline in ways that I had not thought of before. And that's frightening, and challenging, and exciting, and really rewarding. That's the kind of thing that I'm fortunate to have as part of my day job, and I think the students really saw that I was energized in that way and really pushed as a scholar, and that my worldview and my understanding of my own discipline was being shaped by this experience, and that was something that was really exciting throughout the entire semester. When we finally got down there, it was tremendously rewarding, and we made great contacts with a lot of the CRS staff. I don't know if I wasn't able to attend in the morning, but the CRS Haiti office brought together all the engineers from all across the country for this workshop that we put together. And some of them text me on my cell phone regularly, and they became friends, and they're really, really good colleagues who are desperately eager to come here and to learn more about engineering. Mathieu was crazy about it, trying to get here. How can I get there? Can you put me up? Sure, you can sleep on my couch. Can I take some courses? Sure. And it seems like this is merely the tip of the iceberg. And I remember I was saying this to my chair, Mercedes William, when we first started to talk about the potential for this. I said, this opportunity sounds great, and yet I also think it's merely foot in the door. I think there's so much more that this could lead to, not just for French, for Spanish, for Italian, for our entire department, for much of the college, for much of the university, and so it would be a shame to pass up on this opportunity. And yet, with that great potential also has a significant number of administrative hurdles that need to be crossed. We were lucky. I had room in my schedule where I could just create another course that following semester and pass one of the courses I was going to teach on to a colleague. I don't always have that luxury. Not every department, not every program always has that luxury to go from one semester to the next with such flexibility. So, the university calendar is such, we're already scheduling we've already got our courses scheduled right now. We're in late October. We have it set up already for the spring and the summer, and we already have an idea of what we're doing next fall. And so, in order for opportunities to be met with support on the academic side, we need to know about them as far in advance as possible, and that's not always easy. I recognize that. Also, we need for there to be a steady stream of opportunities and for challenges and projects, frankly, coming from CRS Haiti, CRS anywhere in the world. My colleagues are with me on this. They're committed to the study of French speakers anywhere in the world, just as I am. And yet we don't have the same built-in steady stream of work, as my colleagues in Spanish do, where there are many Spanish speakers in the area, Philadelphia area, in our country. And we have now this course in the curriculum, but we can't offer it every semester or even every year because we can offer it when there's work that needs to get done and when it fits with the framework of how our department envisions what a service learning internship is, and we're certainly reasonably flexible on that. But when we were down there the last 2 days that we were there during the workshop, one of the CRS Haiti communication officers, who's a lovely young woman who had just been hired, just graduated from college, and was a Haitian American who had gone to college in Miami, living back in Port-au-Prince, and was working for CRS there. And I said, I already told you this, Susan, I said, so communication office, great, all right, great, because we can't do engineering all the time, but how about this? How about, so I was pitching ideas to her. You know, she had been on the job for maybe 3 weeks, but that didn't bother me. I said, how about this? We take a joint communications and French and Francophone Studies major every year, right? And the students who are graduating with majors in those fields, they can apply, and the best one that we choose gets to be an intern for CRS Haiti after graduation for 2 months or 6 months, unpaid, whatever it is, because in fact, CRS Haiti has tons of, not tons, but they have whole compounds where they can put people up, and they take very good care of the employees, and they took extremely good care of us too, for which I am extremely grateful. And I said, can we do this? You know, let's create opportunities for our students, and let's get the best and the brightest of our graduating class to compete for these really exciting postgraduate opportunities. And she said, oh, I don't know, let me think about it. And I wasn't asking the right person. She wasn't in a position to create something like that. But it seems like there really are a number of opportunities that we can pursue that aren't limited to engineering, that aren't limited to communication, that there could be business, there could be things that they could certainly be health related as well, and fields that I'm not even thinking about. But we just need to, there's the desire here on campus, both from the students and from the faculty. There's a willingness to participate and to bring every bit of our knowledge to bear. As Sue mentioned, I'm a specialist in 19th century French poetry. That has nothing to do with the earthquake in Haiti, nothing. I spent that semester doing very little research in my chosen specialty field, and I did a lot of reading and a lot of learning in a different field, and that's okay. That's really actually good for me, and I enjoyed it, and I got so much out of it. And I'm not alone. All of my colleagues are willing to contribute in that way. All of the colleagues in my department, entire department, are willing to give of themselves in that way if the opportunities are there. And so if there's anything that I could say to everyone here today, I hope that we can create future opportunities for our students and for our university and for ourselves and for the world. Thank you very much.
We have just a minute or two. I was hoping I could ask Mercedes and perhaps Jim, they have any additional comments or reflections that they'd like to offer? Mercedes is the department chair of modern language.
Should I go there? I guess.
Sure. Mercedes, yeah.
Well, hello everybody. I wasn't planning on saying anything today, but I will say a few words. I am not a talker, and luckily Seth had a lot to say, and I'm very happy that you did. I have to say that in our department, we have done quite a bit of work with service learning. We have, with the Spanish section, especially because it's more demanding here in the community, in the Hispanic community in Philadelphia, we have been working for the past, I believe, almost 10 years, non-stop, every semester. We have a group of students, about 20 students, and we and those students we work with the law school. We actually, the students translate for the lawyers that help the community with different issues like immigration, landlord issues, labor-related issues. And we use our best students to go to the law school, spend about 8 hours a week, they need to write a log of what they have done each week and then a paper. So it's a challenging work for the students. We don't give the 3 credits, we just don't give them freely. And I see Michelle in the background, and this is something we put together thanks to her initiative, Michelle Pistone. It wasn't easy to set it up at the beginning because we didn't know how to get the law school and us and the 3 credits and how to work all that out. So it took quite a bit of time, perhaps even a month or so, several meetings, many people involved. So when the project for Haiti came into the picture, we already knew quite a bit about it, so it was done very quickly. We could actually put it together because there had been a lot of groundwork already started with the law school. We've also helped the nursing school with the program in Chulucanas and have done a lot of translating for and the PowerPoints that they actually present there. And also some clinics in the Camden area. We have helped with all the brochures and everything. And we do that through these internship programs that we have put together called, service learning internships. And we also did something for Nicaragua with Jordan, right? So whenever they ask us, we are happy to serve. For me, it's a pleasure of doing so because I looked at it a little bit like I'm also a specialist in poetry, 20th century poetry. I find this work totally unrelated, but very, very rewarding because it's like doing my volunteering work and also helping the community, helping the students. Sometimes I end up doing the translation, making sure that the translation is correct because it needs to be correct. This is a working document, and sometimes the students are just trying. So at the end, the professors in the law school and we end up doing, perfecting all the work done by the students. Sometimes it's more work to have the students than not to have them, but I think it's very good for them. And what we have found out throughout all of these years is that the students, the comments the students give us are amazing. They say that this internship has changed their lives, that they had no idea that these things were happening in the world, that this is a work in progress, that this is something, a hands-on project where they were able to see how the community functions and how other people live, that they were living in like a bubble, and that this service learning helped them see other aspects of society that they had no idea existed. And they say they wouldn't change it for anything. Some of them volunteer to do it again without getting credits. It's very popular, and we are very happy to do it and to continue doing it. For us, it's a pleasure to work with other departments, with other disciplines, and that's what we are here for, right? Also for poetry.
Always so. Anything you'd like to contribute?
I guess the only thing I would like to say is that these CRS projects we have a lot of opportunity to not only the modern languages department, but all the departments and colleges in the university can work. There's business can be involved, and nursing and poli-sci and education. There's a great opportunity here for everybody to get involved in these projects because none of them are all anything. None of them are all engineering. None of them are all modern language. None of them are all business. They're all that stuff's all interrelated, and we need to figure out how we can all work together a little better to kind of get these projects to be more effective for the clients, I guess we would say, but also even for the students.
Just really, can I jump off of that? And this is just a quick plug. Communication is a great resource for these types of projects. Some of you may know we have a class taught every semester called Social Justice Documentary, and our students are always looking for projects. And it's on the books every semester, and certainly they are really focused domestically in Philly and certainly traveling around the country, but this would be so perfect for them. I'm thinking about your comment, Jordan, Also, the two areas that, need to be worked on are the training and professional development and the advocacy piece. And certainly they could help with the advocacy piece, creating documentaries to get the word out to various,
Right.
communities about this work. But they could also help with the training piece if at some point you decide you want to have your modules not just in a book, but in a training film. So this would be a wonderful collaboration for some of our students.
While we're plugging, I'm Jim Klingler from the Business School and from the ICE Center, for which the interdisciplinary talk that's been going on here today is just music to our ears. I'm teaching a course in social entrepreneurship and microfinance next semester. And so as I listen to Jordan's courses, I listen to these other things, we see pieces, individual stars that haven't been gathered by some great person into a constellation yet, but we see them. I know in nursing there are some public health courses and other sorts of things, so that a student can cobble together a rather robust bag of skills and bag of experiences to set them up for a rewarding life to do these sorts of things. So I would encourage anyone who knows a student who might be interested in social entrepreneurship and microfinance. They don't ever have to have taken a business course ever. They can certainly sign up for my course this spring. But there's going to be a meeting that I'm trying to put together a meeting of like minds, and many of the people in this room I would like there, because we need to somehow start pulling the strings between all of these things and creating that constellation so that we can give this as an opportunity for students to have a slightly different path, an interdisciplinary path in the university.
And I just have to put a quick second plug in. There's actually a committee now at Villanova on interdisciplinarity. It was a faculty-driven initiative, and there's 15 or 20 of your colleagues that are currently sitting on that committee. I'm chairing it. So it's in its amorphous state right now, but there is a committee, and it's starting to try to do some of this, and we'll talk more. So I'm Susan Mackey-Callison, I'm chairing that committee, but certainly I think that's really where we need to go, so thank you for that.
Could you send us some information about the microfinance course over to the College of Nursing?
I will send it to
me.
I'll send it to Ruth, and
Okay.
it'll get there. I'll send you out my syllabus. I just put it together yesterday.
Sylvia?
Yeah, there is a parallel body to this one, the Interdisciplinary Program Directors Committee, which is headed by Maria Toyoda, the Associate Dean, which is a very similar committee. And all the directors of interdisciplinary programs are part of this meeting. And in fact, I've been thinking throughout this event about how the program I direct, the Cultural Studies program, can possibly serve as some sort of a grounding for these programs, because it really has all the elements that we are dealing with in the Cultural Studies program. I think it would be a very appropriate entity to have service learning included. So if anybody has some good ideas, please talk to me. I'm Sylvia Nadzekmi, and email me or just mention any good ideas that you have, how we can possibly link up these programs, because as you said, they are all out there. We just need to know and need to link these things together. Thank you.
Any questions or comments?
Thank you, Susan.
I do want to thank all of you, and also the people who had to leave, for being with us today. And I really want to thank, from the bottom of my heart, the presenters who worked very, very hard to pull this together to make it an informative and inspiring and challenging workshop. So, and thank you to Mercedes, Seth, and Jordan for the fine work that you've done, especially with this Haiti project. Really, really grateful for that. And Arlene, thank you for the work that you've done, and always do, helping us strategize and think through our programming. So with that, there are a few vegetarian wraps left. I'm a mom, so I have cling wrap if you want to take any home with you, okay? So thanks a million, and I have your names, and Susan has made an offer, and Sylvia has, and we'll try to keep in touch with you and keep this moving forward. Okay? Thank you very, very much.